Hey, what's up people? It is Reaperator here, and today we're going to be ranking all 3 of Jordan Peele's movies, so without further ado, let's get right into this. Coming in at number 3 at the bottom of the list is going to be Us. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure how I feel about this movie as a whole. There's a lot of parts that I do like, and then there's also a lot of parts that I don't like. So first off, I just want to say that the acting in this movie is amazing, and 2 of the big standouts were Addie and her daughter. I can't remember her daughter's name off the top of my head, but her role as the tethered version was one of the scariest parts of the entire movie. The suspense during this movie was absolutely outrageous. The whole time I was kind of on the edge of my seat wondering, will these characters make it out alive or not? I also like that there was some comedy mixed into here. You can really tell that Jordan Peele, while he's still doing a horror movie, still has that comedic side to him, and he likes to include that. Some of the parts that I found pretty funny was the discussion about I Got 5 on It and what the meaning of the song is, as well as the husband trying to flex his boat and the whole family just not caring and thinking it's stupid. But yeah, just little moments like that I found pretty funny, and I'm glad that they were included. The metaphors and symbolism in this movie were also very interesting once you kind of figure out what it is that they're talking about. If you guys didn't know, the movie is a giant metaphor for the American dream and how it's not all that it's cracked up to be. I won't go into detail in this video because I could spend all day talking about it, but if you guys want to see a good description of it, go look up Film Theory's video about the movie. Also, the Easter eggs were really cool in this movie. There were some Easter eggs with the tattoos on the character of Josh. He had antlers, which is of course a reference to Get Out. And then I also like this little Easter egg. In the very beginning of the movie, we are shown a TV, and there's a box set of the movie Chud right next to it. Now, I've never seen this movie personally, but I have heard about it through videos on YouTube and stuff, and it stands for Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. So I thought that it was kind of cool that Jordan Peele kind of referenced it, because obviously he probably took some inspiration from that movie in making this one. Now, some of the things I didn't like about this movie was that the fact that I found the twist to be way too obvious. From the very beginning, you show a young Addie who runs into her tethered version, but of course at this point in the movie we don't know what's going on. All we know is that there's a copy version of her. And my initial instinct was like, I bet that they switched, but I'll keep watching to see. Then, still very early on in the movie, I think this is about the 14.5-minute mark in what is a 2-hour movie, they actually show more of Addie's backstory, and they show her after the events that we saw in the beginning. They show that she's quiet and she's not talking to anybody, and her parents think that she has post-traumatic stress disorder, blah blah blah. Basically, as soon as they showed that scene, I knew that from then on that she was switched with the copy version of her. Now, I didn't quite know what that version was yet, but I did know that they had switched. And they try to make it this big twist reveal at the end of the movie, and they're like, oh, she's switched out with her tethered version. Now, I've also heard some people talk about how the twist in this movie was kind of supposed to be obvious, or it was supposed to be spelled out, but I don't exactly agree with that or like that statement. A good movie twist should throw the audience, and if it's not going to throw the audience, then it should at least throw the characters in the movie, right? Think of Invincible, right? It didn't throw the audience that Omni-Man was evil. We kind of knew that he was evil, but we weren't really sure why. But it threw all the characters that he was around when people started finding out that he was this evil guy. That's a good twist. In this movie, they try to throw it at the audience like it's this big shock, and I know for at least me personally, I saw it coming a mile away, so it really didn't feel that impactful when it happened. Also, there were a lot of times throughout the movie where I just felt that the characters were kind of unreasonably stupid. I know it's a horror movie, but one of the things I really liked about Get Out was the fact that all the characters were doing things that felt like something a person would actually do in that situation. Where in this movie, it just kind of feels like another typical horror movie where the characters are making dumb decisions the whole time. Some of the things that I think of are the scene where the husband of the family tries going out and fighting the copy family with a bat, and then he gets absolutely rocked by his copy. He gets hit in the leg, which I guess kind of disables him. I get how you could lose that kind of fight, but at the same time, the smart option would have been to lock all the doors and start locking all the windows and just waiting for the police to show up. Now, obviously, the police never did show up because they were preoccupied with all the other things going on, but at this point in the movie, the characters didn't know that was going to happen. Another moment where I felt that the characters were acting super stupid was when they were all in the car, and then they see the duplicate version of the kid of the family, and instead of just trying to drive around him or maybe even run him over, because at that point, you know, he's an evil copy, who cares? They got out of the car and started to try to take him one-on-one like that, and I just thought that was super stupid. Now, the actual kid, not the tether, figured out that the tether was going to copy him, so he walked backwards and made the tether walk into a bunch of flames. That was a smart play. However, them getting out of the car left them vulnerable for what was going to happen with Addie's tether when she took the kid and ran away. Also, the movie's explanation for how these tethers came to be, I felt was just way too vague. Now, I understand movies like this, they kind of want you to think and kind of formulate your opinions for yourself, but that only goes so far in my opinion. If you just leave kind of a lazy explanation in there, which is what I'm going to call this, then I'm not going to be too happy about it. First of all, I want to know why they were made in the first place. What was the original purpose of these creations? 2, I want to know why they were abandoned. Like why would the government spend all this time and effort setting up these duplicates if not to eventually use them for something? 3, I want to know why they even left them alive in the first place. Was it something they were going to come back to? 4, I want to know how the copying system and part of this works, right? I mean, they show some of the backstory of these tethered people, and they're all copying the people on the surface, but how do they know to do that? And if they're so good at copying, you would think that they're also intelligent and can kind of figure out how to escape, but that's not the case, obviously, as we've seen. I also want to know why Addie's tether was so different. She obviously broke away from this copying mode that they were in and used that to kind of replace her normal self with her tethered self. And lastly, I want to know more. This copying system was really what made me upset. I want to know more of how they even broke away from it in the first place. I mean, you get real Addie in the underground, and she's kind of the leader of these people, and she kind of teaches them how to stage the revolution that she plans. But at the same time, if they could just leave the whole time, why wasn't that what they started with? Why did it take years for that to come about? There's just a lot of unanswered questions, and I felt that it was mainly in part just due to kind of lazy writing, in my opinion. And I also understand that a lot of people love this movie for the symbolism, and don't get me wrong, I love the symbolism too. I thought that part of the movie was done super well. However, the symbolism doesn't make up for what is otherwise just kind of a bad plot, in my opinion. The symbolism should complement what is already a good movie, not be the entire reason why it's good, if that makes any sense. So with that being said, I am going to give this movie a 5 out of 10 rating. It just wasn't a movie that I personally thought was outstanding, and that's why it's at the bottom of my ranking. Coming in at the number 2 spot, we have Nope. Now, I did think this movie was better than Us, but I also didn't think that it was that outstanding. It had a lot of cool parts, but there was nothing in it where I really thought, wow, this is crazy and mind-blowing. I just thought that it was kind of a unique take on the alien invasion genre, if you will. Now, the first half of this movie was really strong. I really liked the whole subplot and plotline of, I forgot the name, but it was that sitcom and the monkey went crazy and attacked everybody and killed everybody and kind of mangled this one girl. I thought that all was super interesting, and I really liked the fallout of what was happening over at the Haywood Ranch. I thought that was pretty cool and could have been explored just a little bit more. I would have liked to see how the struggle of trying to keep that place afloat was really affecting the characters. I feel that they didn't show that enough because so much of the movie's runtime was focused on the alien. Also, in the first half of this movie, before I realized it was even about aliens, I really liked that. The wonder and the suspense were really keeping me hooked. And of course, just like with all the other Jordan Peele movies, the cast is amazing, the acting is done super well. The standout character for me was Keke Palmer. I really liked her character in this movie, and I thought that she was fun and energetic. I like the fact that Keith David was in it, especially because he was in They Live, which is another kind of alien invasion movie. Although I would have loved to see more of him. They killed him off fairly quick, and I love the actor, so I wanted to see more. Now, talking about the second half of this movie, I did like that the UFO was a very unique take on what it is. Of course, all the characters in the movie were thinking it was an alien spaceship because that's kind of what it looked like and behaved like, but the twist that it was actually just what the alien was and it was just a flying monster that eats things was pretty cool. That being said, one of the things that really ticked me off about this movie was how quickly OJ was learning about this thing. OJ called out the fact that it wasn't a spaceship and it was actually an animal right away, and he really didn't have that much knowledge about what it is or what it does yet. He also figured out not to look it in the eye in order to survive right away, and again, he just didn't have that much knowledge about it to know that for a fact. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, it's because he's worked with animals his whole life, but to me, that doesn't explain how he knows and claims to know everything about an extraterrestrial beast right away. Also, the fact that it could kind of hide inside of a cloud and the fact that it was messing with electricity was never really explained, and I kind of get why they did that. It was kind of to make it seem more mysterious. But being that they're going with the route that this is just a beast who's hunting around and eating, one has to assume that the beast isn't very intelligent. So I'm wondering how an unintelligent species could perform either of those two things. Also, the ending of the movie kind of left me unsatisfied. I didn't like how they killed off the monster. I thought that it should have been left to live, because the point of what these characters was doing was not to kill it, they just wanted to take a picture of it. And also the fact that it died by eating a giant balloon is kind of just dumb. And also it proves what I said earlier about the beast not being very intelligent. So if it's dumb enough to die by eating a balloon, how is it smart enough to hide inside of a cloud? A cloud that it seems to make. There was just a lot with this movie where maybe it's just my personal not understanding, but I don't know. I wasn't big on this one either. That being said, I did think the themes were extremely cool. The theme of how Steven Yeun's character was kind of trying to tame this beast and how he paid the price for it, and of how he survived the monkey thrashing, as I'm going to refer to it as, when he was a kid, because the tablecloth was covering his eyes and it didn't let him look directly into the eyes of the monkey, and that kind of kept him alive. I thought all of that was done super well, but overall, yeah, I just didn't think this movie was that great. Now, I did think it was better than Us, and I am going to give it a 6 out of 10 rating, but that being said, I didn't think it was one of the better movies I've ever seen. I just thought it was good. But coming in at our number 1 spot, we are of course going to have Get Out. Now, contrary to the other two, I think this is one of the best movies I have ever seen in my life. Not just horror movies, but just movies. Everything in this movie is done so perfectly, and I loved every minute I watched of it. There was so much symbolism going on with Chris allowing his mother to kind of die when he could have done something about it. And then he does the same thing with the deer in the beginning of the movie, and that kind of shows the symbolism between him and his mom. And it also is a good foreshadow to what he's going to eventually do when he tries to save Rose's grandma. He hit her with the car or something like that, and she was kind of laying out in the road, and Chris makes the conscious decision to go and try and rescue her, which he of course wouldn't have done would it have not been for his traumatic past. Speaking of foreshadowing, there was so much of it done in this movie. The bingo scene, I really had no idea what was going on at first because nobody talks, it's just a silent scene. When I found out that it was an auction later on and they're trying to see who's going to inhabit Chris's body, I was like, wow, that is super nuts. Another detail that I found really cool is in the beginning when you have Rose getting pulled over after they hit the deer and the cop asks for Chris's ID. Now, on surface level, this is a cool scene because it shows racial profiling, and then you have Rose who kind of goes against this, and you think, oh, she's a really cool girlfriend, you know, she's preventing Chris from being profiled. But when you look at it deeper, the fact is she didn't really care that Chris is being racially profiled. What she cared about was the cop not seeing his ID, so later when they do their thing and Chris goes missing, the cop doesn't remember who Chris was or has his ID to go off of. I could go on and on about all the little foreshadows and intricate detail, but that would take an entire video, and I'm not here to only talk about Get Out today. I could make an entire video about Get Out if I wanted to, though it has been out since 2017, and I feel like every YouTuber and their grandma has made a video about it at this point, so I don't think I'm going to go down that route. That being said, if it's something you guys want to see, let me know, and I'll for sure make it. Now, the biggest part I liked about this movie were, of course, the plot twists. While watching this film, I of course knew that something was wrong. Every time there was a black character at the house, they were all acting super strange, and I couldn't really figure out why. I suspected it had something to do with the hypnotism, but my guess was just that they were hypnotizing these people and kind of making their own modern slavery. Also, Rose's performance was absolutely nuts. She really threw me when I figured out that she was actually on her family's side. When I was first watching, my initial thought was that Rose was playing Chris and that she was in it with her family, but then they threw in a line in there which threw me right off the scent, which was when they were talking about their family coming up, and her family says to her, oh yeah, they come up at the same time every year, and Rose goes, no they don't, and then the family said, yes they do, and Rose seemed genuinely confused that this was going on. That to me threw me, and I thought it was going to be Rose and Chris against the family at that point, and then the scenes where Chris starts to kind of realize that she's in on it with them is when he finds the pictures, and that was a big twist to me. And of course, at this point, I still didn't know what was quite happening, I just knew that they were doing something shady. But the reveal that they were actually taking over these people's bodies through brain surgery and hypnotism was just absolutely so out there, but in such a good way. I also really loved Rose's acting in the scene where Chris's friend, I forgot his name right now, but it's his friend who works for the TSA. When he starts to figure out that some shady stuff is happening, he tries to call them. And Rose acts so good in this scene. It is crazy when she's kind of got the emotionless and stale face, but she's acting like she's scared. The acting was just off the chain. It was so good. But yeah, Get Out is by far the best of all of these three movies, and I think most people can agree with that. I would have to give it a 9.5 out of 10 rating, and it's literally in my top 5 movies of all time. But with that being said, I am going to end the video here. If you guys enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, as it truly does help my channel a lot. If you want to see more in the future, hit the subscribe button, as well as ring the notification bell so that you're always alerted whenever I upload more. Make your voices heard, guys. I want to know, do you agree with my ranking? Do you guys agree with the fact that I gave 2 of these movies really low ratings? I know everybody seems to love these movies, but for me, I just didn't really like the other 2 half as much as I'd like to Get Out. But yeah, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.